Ecamm just, wow, what a difference, dude. So I went from 89, and granted it's download, went from 89 to 528. I hope so. Thank you. Oh boy. All right.
Default microphone. I know exactly what's wrong.
Okay. Awesome. Good evening, everyone. Of course, insert your AOL jokes here at this point. I don't care, because for some reason, just the program that we use. I'll just keep rambling until you get it.
Oh, I'm good. We're fine now.
We're good?
Yeah,
okay.
My mic was chosen set properly in OBS. It's fine.
Oh, fun. Yeah, the program we used decided to just overheat and crash everything on my end, so Ian's taking over this. So, hi again. Welcome. All right, with that, let's get right into it. We'll just start freshly clean. Conference finals are set, but we'll get to that. But bunch of to get on the program this evening. Let's begin with the big elephant in the room, which is the Desert Dogs. Tempe, Arizona residents rejected propositions 301, 302, and 303 to build an entertainment district in an arena for the Arizona.
We can slow down. Like I know we did this on a garbled stream, but still slow down. Like it's fine.
Okay.
We're not, do you have somewhere to be? I don't have anywhere to be.
I have nowhere to be.
Well,
I want to be at work
4-hour
tomorrow.
Show, guys. Here we go.
Oh, finally! I get to do a 4-hour show with Ian. Hi, how you doing? So he's Ian. I'm Eric. So let's get into it. Tempe, Arizona says no to the Coyotes arena. I mean, the Coyotes, I think even Craig Morgan, who does a great job covering the Coyotes down there, we're all expecting this to be a win, and maybe that's why they didn't, spend as much as you had mentioned to us in our DMs the other last night.
Mm-hmm.
This is a massive blow for the Coyotes.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think the one thing that I think, and I didn't mention this on our garbled stream, but I think something that something different, so I can kind of change it up, and then I'll probably hit on a lot of the same points that I made on the previous stream. And I do apologize for the people that watch that live and aren't getting this on replay, where you get the one take that is this take. The one thing that was really absent from all of the statements about the Coyotes, like from the NHL, from everything else, like every other time we've had these issues, right? It's been like, oh, but we're very committed to keeping the Coyotes in Arizona. And that was very absent from all of the statements that were made.
Oh, after the votes? Yeah. And the team has got to take some time along with the league to figure out what the next set of options there are. One of the least of which is talking to Suns ownership about renovating the arena that they currently play in, which kind of eliminated any chance of it being renovated for hockey, because the old Suns ownership, who said, okay, let's do this, basically said no to the Coyotes coming back into, I think it's Footprint Center. Is the league and ownership will take some time. Mm-hmm. Can they convince the ownership to do something? I mean, like we said on the Gargled stream, would that require them to sell part or all of the Coyotes to the Suns in order to get that? Does that mean not just to re-renovate arena, or do they just say they just bulldoze and just build a brand spanking new arena for both?
Well, here's the problem, right? And again, I don't want to keep referencing the other stream because if for anyone who's listening to us on replay, it has no value.
Right.
So I'm just gonna try and I'm just gonna go off for 10 minutes and hope that I hit on everything that I said previously, and hope that it's a good listen for the people that just are getting this on replay, either podcatcher or whatever. So yeah, I think the first thing that they're probably going to do is they're probably going to have to circle back to the Suns ownership. I think that's the only option they have left. I don't know. I know the arena that the Suns play in isn't new, but I don't know if you can. I don't know if are people, is there an appetite for new arenas on taxpayers' dimes? Because we can say, oh yeah, they can just circle back and maybe the Suns, ask for a new arena and they get one because basketball is way more popular than hockey. But at the end of the day, like, I think this situation shows that if you give taxpayers the say in it, a lot of them balk at having their taxpayer dollars used to fund arenas for billionaires.
Right.
I mean, I think the one thing that, like, going back to the vote, like, am I surprised that this got voted down? Not really. I mean, after what happened in Glendale, I think Glendale's a huge cautionary tale for Tempe, right? And if a lot of the pro yes people are like, oh, this isn't going to cost us anything. This is going to be fine. It's going to pay for itself and blah, blah, blah. But when you really look at it and you really get into the details of it, it was going to cost $200 million to clean up the site that they want to use to make sure that it's usable. And that's the estimate. How often do these things come in as an estimate? Not always. And then, they're supposed to get a tax break for, I think, 30 years, which went out to the tune to, I think, 500 million or something like that. So so who's going to make up that shortfall? Well, obviously the taxpayers are going to. So, this idea that it wasn't going to cost the taxpayers of Tempe anything, I think, was a little disingenuous. As for the ownership group, and Skype's going to do the Skype thing. As for the ownership group, I think, this is a situation where I wonder if they are going to force a sale now. Because, as I try to recenter my frame here, Skype does this thing recently where it just bounces around and it just resizes itself nonstop.
Hey, everybody can take a look at my lamp. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay, there. I think I've got it back to normal. I wonder if this is a situation where the ownership group is forced to sell by the NHL, because something else that also comes up with the situation was, I think, the no side for this. I think they did a bunch of campaigning and stuff, and I think that to the tune of like $2 million. And the Coyotes themselves, I think they said they, in their campaign, they tried to keep it grassroots or whatever, but they're just being cheap. They paid they only spent like $250,000. And I think after everything that Gary Bettman has gone through, like, this is a big loss for Gary Bettman. This is probably going to go down as Gary Bettman's biggest catastrophe in his entire run as commissioner of the NHL. He's fought really, really hard to keep this team in Arizona. Obviously, it's a big media market. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a situation where, I don't think they put their best foot forward to try and get this thing over the line. And I think that if I'm Gary Bettman, I'm really angry now. And I probably want to get a new ownership group. And the other thing too, and this is on 32 Thoughts today, is like, since Gary Bettman has taken over, one of the biggest changes is most of the NHL teams own their arena.
Right.
And so I don't see a situation where, like, I don't see how you relocate this team with this ownership group intact. Like if you're going to go somewhere else that has an owner waiting, like wouldn't you rather, that owner is that owner going to, pull strings and stop you from moving your team there if you're not going to sell to that potential owner? I don't know.
It's going to be interesting because you basically have to kind of crawl hands and knees to Sun's ownership, be like, hey, can we do this? And they could basically like, yeah, if you sell it to me for pennies on the dollar, for that matter. For Bettman, while he's going to take a lot of crap for it, and he should, absolutely. I give him the kudos for trying every single possibility to get this thing to work.
Yeah.
But the tough part is that people don't want it. And now, that being said, are there a lot of diehard Coyotes fans? Absolutely. I know one on Twitch, Deke Slayer.
Mm-hmm.
I know one that actually went off on the Glendale City Council.
Yep.
That I was fortunate to meet, a few years ago. It's just a tough sense of everything going on because you're running out of options. And when talking to Deke Slayer today, they said there are places to go, but how many places can you really go? I mean, there's nothing going to be in Phoenix. I mean, the Arizona Diamondbacks have been wanting to get out of their ballpark, and Phoenix said, go right ahead. You're staying at Chase Field. We built that 25 years ago. We're not going to let you go out of the ballpark. You had Scottsdale and the Los Arcos deal that fell through. That's why you did everything in Glendale, and then the whole thing with Glendale, falls apart, and then you're playing here. I mean, you give them credit for trying, but at some point you have to wonder what's going to go on. And speaking of 32 Thoughts, that's what Elliot Friedman mentioned on Monday and Wednesday. Among the cities that could be available for relocating for the Coyotes was Sacramento. Now, obviously, there's talk for Houston a bit, in that their ownership was interested in buying the Coyotes to go with the Rockets, and the Toyota Center in Houston is hockey ready. You also have Kansas City with a building in place that might just need a little bit of a renovation to get ready for the NHL. You have Salt Lake City, where the Kings host their Frozen Fury preseason game, which, by the way, it's against the Sharks this year. But Sacramento, and obviously the hype from the Kings, getting to the playoffs is big. That building at Golden One Center is 7 years old. You wonder if they do try to renovate it, you can play in Stockton, where it looks like it's a mini Staples Center.
But they don't even have to leave. Like here's the thing, right? Like if relocation is the play, you don't have to leave Mullet Arena for, I think, 2 seasons. Like they have time to sort this out. Like I don't think, like, this isn't going to be a Thrashers situation. I don't think so anyway. I don't believe this is going to be a Thrashers situation where, like, in 2 weeks they're just going to be sold and moved, right? They have, the NHL does have time on their side. They can do this right. So whether it be force a sale, the thing that I wonder about is, you mentioned a few cities, like obviously Kansas City, I think, has the arena, but do they have an owner? I don't think they do. Like I know the Kansas City Chiefs owner, I think, wanted to buy the Penguins back in the day, but I feel like, from what I understand, that ship has sailed. He's not really interested in NHL ownership at this point. And if you're if you're a potential NHL owner, now relocation is generally cheaper. Buying a team and relocating is generally cheaper than expansion. But with the new expansion rules, don't you want an expansion team over the Coyotes? Like, don't get me wrong, like the Coyotes do have some nice pieces coming along, right? There's some nice pieces there, but if you're gonna pay that much money, and you see the success of the Vegas Golden Knights, you see the success of the Seattle Kraken, do you want the Coyotes?
Yeah, that's a tough one, and it's just, will the NHL want to expand again? And, now we're starting to hear, we've heard, Atlanta again,
Yeah.
and like you mentioned, Atlanta was completely different as opposed to Arizona, just because there was no local ownership
There was
available.
yeah. So the Atlanta situation was really, that was a definite black eye for Gary Bettman too. Obviously the ownership group kind of really, they had no owner and they had nowhere to play. Like they had nowhere else to go.
Right.
They had no other choice than to go to Winnipeg. I don't see that being the case this time. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think TSN should start the Nordiques meter.
Oh
If
God,
you remember
really?
that, yeah, I remember the Jets meter. How that, like, every time Coyotes
Oh
had a thing, and it
boy.
was like it would get closer and closer and closer to the Jets returning, and then most of the time it didn't work out until the Thrashers had their things. I haven't seen a Nordiques meter yet, so I don't know.
Yeah, it drives me nuts, but I digress.
I don't I think, I don't think they want to off balance the conferences again. So I think
No.
I don't think Atlanta's like going to be like, I don't think the Coyotes are going to Atlanta. I think it's going to be a team it's going to be somewhere that would fit in the Western Conference. So I think Quebec City's out for that reason too. It's fascinating though, right? Because I think, like, if you, again, not only from a NHL perspective, but from an owner perspective, like, if you, the NHL, we don't know when the NHL is going to expand again. I think there's some interest in expansion. I don't know how much appetite there is from the league itself to expand those. So I think
Goodness.
if you're in a situation where it's like, well, I could take this relocation, or maybe they expand again in 5 years, but maybe they don't. Maybe I jump on that, but
Hmm.
I don't know. I wonder, right? Because again, it comes down to owners, right? And I think the first things first, right? What are the Coyotes owners going to do? Are they going to sell? Are they going to, are they going to try some last ditch effort in that area? I don't see what the options are. Like, I feel like they're going to have to sell. I think that's the only real thing left now, and it's not a matter of if the Coyotes get sold. I think it's when they get sold. I do feel bad for the fan zone. I didn't mention that in my little tirade. Like, I do want to say that I do feel terrible for Coyotes fans. I think, it's how shitty it must be to be a Coyotes fan. This team seems to have had a foot out the door for the last 20 years, 10, 15
Yeah.
years. Like, I feel terrible for Coyotes fans. Like, I don't know what I would do if, like, the Sharks had 1 foot out the door. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
there's a potential that they just wouldn't be the Sharks anymore. I don't know what I would do.
What would we do?
Yeah.
Teal together, and now it's just ripped apart, and
Yeah.
because they're
Like,
on their way to somewhere else. Just something else.
I do feel for Coyotes fans. I think it sucks for them. Like, I'm not.
Yeah.
There was a lot of weird, dunking on, like, I think you can dunk on the situation, but I wouldn't, like, leave the fans alone, man. They don't deserve that.
No.
They've been through it. Like, if you are a diehard to stick through with the Coyotes through all this bullshit, like, you are, man, like, give those people a Medal of Honor. Like,
Right. Oh,
you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
I leave them alone. That would be my thing. Like, one of the things.
Yeah. Yeah. I just hope it gets remedied, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it's in Arizona. If not, I tried
We'll
to
see.
reach out to Becker about if they were to try to go to Sacramento, I would assume that interrogates into the Sharks' territory.
Yeah,
So you wonder if that would be
Shang reported something along that too. But look, I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, the Ducks are a 30-minute drive from Staples.
right, and that's the thing is that the Ducks had to pay a fee to the Kings to
Right.
getting into their territory rights. Didn't get.
I
That
think if they
hooked up,
wanted to go to Sacramento, and I don't, maybe I'm wrong. Like, I don't have a good, like, I'm not a Sharks insider. I'm a Sharks jackass on YouTube. I don't know what would like, I don't know. I don't profess to know what the Sharks think. Like, I don't know. I mean, obviously, look at things. The attendance at SAP not very good right now, right? But I still think, like, the NHL could go to Hasso Plattner and be like, hey, we're going to put a team in Sacramento and you're going to get X, Y, and Z in return, right? Maybe you get some money. Hey, maybe you get that next game at Tahoe or whatever the fuck it is.
Right.
Right. Like I think there's ways that you
Oh,
can
you
make
mentioned
that
Tahoe.
work. I know. I'm just gonna get all the people going. I don't know. And again, I don't know what the ownership in Sacramento would look like. Like it's kind of a city that's kind of come out of nowhere. To me, Houston makes a lot of sense because Houston has it's a big TV market, and they've also kind of balked at the price of expansion. The potential owner there is kind of balked at the price of expansion. So again, if this is relocation, that's cheaper.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I wonder if they can circle back there. I think Houston makes a ton of sense because of that. Salt Lake City could work, but I wonder if they can get if they can get whatever they need to get sorted out in time for the Coyotes moving out of Mullet Arena.
Right. The other thing too with Houston, as you mentioned, with TV markets, Atlanta's number 6, Houston is number 7.
Right.
Those are the two biggest markets that don't have an NHL team, which is, I mean, in Phoenix is number 11. So the big amount of people are being able to watch the game. Granted, if you're seeing half of them on ESPN Plus, I digress. Right. It is a big one. That's why I think Bettman has been pushing to keep Arizona in there while Dallas takes over Texas. I mean, it would be a good rivalry for Dallas and Houston. There is a fairly new building in Milwaukee as well. Can it handle hockey? I mean, just picture if they were
My
to move
American
to
geography's whack, but like Milwaukee, where's Milwaukee again?
Wisconsin.
Milwaukee, okay, right. Milwaukee's in Wisconsin. Man, that's like you're right into like Chicago, Minnesota. Like you're in a lot of.
And not to mention, I wouldn't be surprised if someone were to leave Dallas for that team if that were the case. But I digress.
I wonder, like, because I don't know, like, Milwaukee's an interesting one, but I feel like if you're worried about territorial rights, like, I feel like that one's, Minnesota's right there.
Yeah. Dalton in the chat, for Golden One Center, it would need a major remodel to change the refrigerant system for NHL games. They currently have a small unit for Disney on Ice and such, but for a hockey team of any level, ice, it would need to be a much larger system and a compressor for NHL caliber ice. And that's kind of what killed the Islanders at Barclays Center for one of the many reasons.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing too, is when people talk about like moving like buildings that are built for basketball as their primary tenant, the sightlines are different than for hockey, and that's why a lot of basketball arenas don't make good, like if they're not built with both in mind off the hop. This is why a lot of basketball arenas aren't great for hockey. It screws with the sight lines are different. It's, Barclays Center I'm glad you brought up Barclays Center, because I think that's a perfect example of an arena that really didn't work for hockey because of the way it was built, because it was built for basketball, so the sight lines were kind of weird. And I mean, the mascot was a car, so there was that too.
Oh, I remember that. Yes. And even going back into the days of Sacramento, the reason why I think it gets brought up is because it was one of the cities that, they had neutral site games for the NHL when they were testing out markets and seeing how that would work out too. So
yeah, I mean, anything's possible. I think I think a lot of I don't think there's an open solution for a team right now. I think maybe the only arena I can think of right now that's not Quebec City, that it would be I think turnkey NHL ready. I think you have to do a little bit of renovations to it because you'd probably want to add some more suites or whatnot, is Kansas City. The problem with Kansas City is there's no owner. Right. Again, you need an owner, right? And I don't know if the current ownership wants to own a team in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Right? I guess if they went to Kansas City and they decided to own that team, keep owning that team, I guess, if that's what they wanted to do. Kansas City, I think, is the most turnkey ready situation. That's not Quebec City. Quebec City is probably the most turnkey ready because they built that arena with the NHL in mind, and it sells out for Quebec Ramparts games. So I think people would go to, here's the problem with Quebec City, right? Quebec City is a small city. And it's not like it's not like Quebec City in the metropolitan area. Like it's Quebec City in trees. And there's the potential owner of a team in Quebec City, incredibly deep pockets, but I think it would be a lot similar to Winnipeg, where they would need to, like, I think as long as they're being supported, I think it would be fine. But I think if they had like a real dip in attendance or interest because, team not good or whatever,
Right.
I think they would have a hard time keeping the lights on. And I say that and people would be like, "Oh, this fucking American does." Dude, I'm Canadian. Like, I've been to Quebec City. Okay, I've been there. I just think again, I think and also, I will always say this, there's no part in, I don't care where you are in Canada, be it, Halifax, Victoria, up in Nunavut, there is nowhere in this country you are not served by hockey. If you put another team in Canada, it would make money. And I'm not saying that a team in Canada wouldn't make money,
right,
but you're not making new fans. You're not growing the game by putting
right,
another team in Quebec City. And I think Quebec City would have, the other thing with Quebec City too, before I get off on this tirade is that I think Quebec City would also have a hard time with free agents because it is a very francophone first city.
right.
Right?
Even more so than Montreal.
No, Montreal is way more of a melting pot than Quebec City. Quebec City is very, very francophone. And I think if you're an English speaking, I think if you're a very English speaking player then that doesn't speak a lot of French or no French, I think you would have a much harder time getting along in Quebec City than you would in a city like Montreal, where I think an Anglophone can get by for the most part pretty easily. In Quebec City, not so much. Now, if you are a European coming from a country that, they're smarter than we are. They speak 4 languages in a lot of these countries, right? Where French might be already one of the languages that you speak, granted being more European French than Quebecois. Maybe you would do okay in Quebec City, but yeah, I don't know, man. I know a lot of people would like to see Quebec City, but I think there's a lot of minuses there too.
Mm. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see the Quebec City back, but yeah, there's a lot of ifs there that needs to be taken care of, and tiny market too. I mean, let's be honest.
It is a tiny market. So. It doesn't have a huge corporate footprint. I think, and corporate money is very important to the modern game. And this is why, and it's the same reason why I don't think we'll ever see a team in Hartford again too. Same
yeah.
thing, right? The NHL is just the way the NHL is now. It has outgrown certain cities, and I feel like Quebec City, and people get mad at me in the comments, and that's fine. But I feel like Quebec City, Hartford, as much as they might pull on your heartstrings for a little nostalgia, I think the NHL has outgrown them.
Yeah, unfortunately. All right, well, let's move along. Let's get into round 2. We're recapping round 2 here.
Pain around 2, man. I'm so glad I get to do this after being I think 1-3 in the second round, and my first round was pretty disastrous too. Do not watch this show, listen to my predictions, or listen to my predictions and then bet the opposite if you are a betting man.
See, here's my thing is our Teal Town USA League one. It's I already had that out the door when Boston got eliminated.
Mine's pretty explosive. The only thing that's still working in my bracket is Dallas is still alive. Other than that, everything else is.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. See, I think I had Seattle, Toronto, because that was wishful thinking and going for the shocking upsets of the world and everything. But let's see. We'll start with the one that I think everybody in Canada is talking about. Freaking the Panthers taking out Toronto with ease. Would you say? I mean,
yeah.
After upsetting the Bruins, they just went into Toronto going crazy.
The funniest thing is that I listened to our last show that we did where we talked about the second round, and I went in and I gave all the reasons why Toronto would lose the series and then picked Toronto to win. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know, man. I just thought this was going to go differently, but no, I mean, Florida came out. I think, again, look at it's, you always get nervous about a team that has jumped over a hurdle, right? And that hurdle being the first round is a sad state of affairs. But it was a big win for Toronto, because I think Toronto is a team obviously that has had nothing but failure, despite having honestly a pretty good team. And I don't envy Toronto right now, because I don't know what I would do to that team.
Right.
I don't know what I would do. There's a lot of things on that team that I really like. There was a lot of moves that Kyle Dubas made coming up to the deadline that I liked. I liked the addition of Ryan O'Reilly. I thought that's the perfect guy for what this team would need, right? Nolan Acciari, another guy who I thought built for the playoffs. But I mean, Florida came out and the second round, not even just in this series, but I thought the early part of the second round was actually kind of boring, man. It was a lot of blowout games. There wasn't a lot of good games until you got into the end. I think I enjoyed watching the Toronto the game. Toronto got eliminated. Obviously, game 6 and 7 in the Seattle Dallas was fun.
Yeah. Did you think that goal or that no goal was a goal for Morgan Riley?
So here's the thing with that, right? Yeah, should it have been a goal? Sure, but here's the problem. We've seen that called 100 million times, where the ref lost track of it, intent to blow. That's the rule, man. Do I understand why League fans are upset? Of course I do. But that's, we've seen that called so many times that it's hard to be super upset about it. For me, as an outside looking in guy who, I like getting series right, but I don't really have any rooting interest at this point. So, we've seen that called so many times. We've seen that go for the Sharks against the Sharks, and we've seen it go against a lot of other teams too. So, I think under the current rules, I mean, if the ref lost sight and he, and he couldn't see it and he thought the play was dead, he thought the play was dead. It is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, there's that. Of course, there's the, Sam Bennett, then the late elbow to Mitch Marner. I mean, I get that the Leafs had a lot of things to gripe, but, when you're, and to use the Ted Ramey quote, your best players need to be your best players.
Yeah.
It was tough. I mean, San Ramon, California's Austin Matthews did not have a great series. And Mitch Marner had okay series,
Yeah.
So I would say hats off to Bobrovsky. You're back on the force, Bobrovsky.
Yeah, he's been really good. He's been good. I feel bad. I think Burgess in the chat is right. The drama of the Leafs offseason is going to provide countless entertainment and just plenty of talking points for people that do this in the summer. I don't know. I feel bad because I feel like they did a lot of things right. I think there's a lot of teams who have had their window kind of screwed by the COVID flat cap. And now look at everyone in the league had to deal with the same thing. But I think when you're a team like Toronto, who spent a lot of money on a lot of players thinking that the cap was just going to keep going up and you would have room for those depth pieces, maybe not. Maybe they mismanage it. Edmonton is a thing. We'll get to them in a minute. I just, I think it's one of those things where I think it's kind of unfortunate for them, because I think if the cap didn't flatten out, and obviously look at Tampa Bay made it work. Other teams have obviously made it work, but I think some teams have had their window kind of really screwed up by the flat cap and not being able to get the pieces that they need. Obviously, I think Samsonov was really good for them until he got hurt. Wool did, I thought, a hell of a job coming into that situation. That kind of pressure cooker. I give Woll a lot of credit there too. And but you still have Matt Murray on the books for another year at a pretty decent chunk of change. So yeah, it's rough. And I don't know what I would do. If I'm Kyle Dubas, if Kyle Dubas is even going to be the guy that has to decide what's next, I don't know what you do, because you've kind of have this core. I think you have to do something. I think you have to shake up the core probably a little bit. But like, I don't think you blow this up and start over. You're kind of stuck with what you have right now. Like, and you kind of have no, as long as you have players like, like Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, under contract, like you kind of have to go for it. So I don't know what you do. I really don't. I wish I if I did, I'd be smart and, I'd get an NHL job tomorrow, but I don't. So I'm just a jerk off on YouTube.
God. I don't know what you do in Toronto. Like seriously. I mean, obviously there needs to be some sort of change. I don't know what that change is though.
Yeah, I don't envy that job. Like, I wouldn't want that job, I think, because there's going to be a lot of, obviously, there's a lot of emotion there. I think they beat Tampa. They pulled Florida instead of Boston, which I think was a nice, they had a pretty open path here. So I think there's going to be, obviously, like, we're not in it. It's not our team. We don't give a shit. But I think there's going to be a lot of people that are super upset and they're sick of the disappointment. And I think that losing the way that they did in the second round, I don't think do you go back to that and be like, oh, well, we won a round, so everything's okay. Like, I don't think you can do that if you're Toronto. Like, I don't think winning a round and then getting bounced in 5 is good enough.
No. And
with that roster, with that payroll, with the players they have on that roster, it's nowhere near good enough.
I look at the early years with Jumbo in San Jose with that look. When you had the likes of Scott Nickel, Manny Malhotra, or earlier with Jeremy Roenick, or Rob Lake, that was a team that was built that should have won a cup.
Yeah.
I look at Toronto in that same form, and it's like, okay, how much do we need to tinker? We really have to start thinking about what's going on here with our cap room, and I'm like,
yeah,
man, who do you move?
It's an unenviable job because I think. Because you could just as easily, you could overreact and make that situation so much worse. And I don't think and people be like, oh yeah, but they're going to be a grittier, tougher team to play against. But you know what? No one gives a shit if your gritty, tough to play against team doesn't win anything.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
I hope we're not headed towards the point where the regular season is going to be this skillful, and skillful regular season, and then all of a sudden it changes and you have to be bruisers. We look at the game-winning play, by Nick Cousins, and who will forget that picture of Radko Gudas, screaming in Samson's face?
That was, but he's also, but that was shitty. That was a shitty thing to do. Like, if that goal is in game 4, game 3. Like, that's I have no issue with that. But to win the series and do that, that's kind of shitty. I didn't like that.
While holding the stick of your opponent while letting that open it up, but I digress. Sorry, Leafs fans.
Yeah, whatever. All right.
Yeah, moving onward, we'll go to the other Eastern semi. Carolina looks like it can be a machine.
Yeah, I'm man. The one thing that I always keep, like, 'cause I think the one thing, like, anytime I've ever been like really high on Carolina before, they've always screwed me, man. Like, Carolina has broken a few brackets of mine because of goaltenders made of glass has been a big part of it, I think. But man, yeah, Carolina, like, they look like they are for real, and I think the Panthers, I mean, as much as the Panthers have, not to get too far ahead of us here, but as much as the Panthers have looked good against Boston and they were able to handle the Leafs pretty quickly, they're going to have their hands full next round.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one indeed. And Carolina just doing it without Max Pacioretty, without Svechnikov.
Yeah. Yeah, to do what they've done, I think you got to give Carolina a lot of credit. And the Devils, I give the Devils some credit. I think they did more than I thought. I thought they were going to be a one and done team. They beat the Rangers, and I think again, I think it's kind of like Toronto, right, where you get that first round, like, especially beating a team like the Rangers who is a big rival for like those teams. Absolutely hate each other.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's hard to take that momentum into the next round. But I think, Carolina handled them, and I think the issue that I was worried about with the Hurricanes in that round, I kind of was it was more with the Devils. Like their goaltending kind of just collapsed on them.
Yeah, that was tough, and you were going back from Vanacek to Schmid, and just nothing was working.
Nothing. Yeah, exactly. I think nothing worked. And I think Schmid came in and he did really good, but I think once he kind of fell apart, like Vanacek, I don't think was good at any point in the playoffs. And so I think when they had to go back, when they kind of started flip-flopping back and forth, I think, I think that's an issue that they're probably going to need to address in the offseason and they have a lot to figure out this offseason because they've got to figure out, what they're going to pay Timo Meier, what they're going to pay Bratt. And then, you got Dawson Mercer up next year. So there's definitely, implications that this offseason are going to have going into the next offseason too, I think, with them, because there's definitely some big cap decisions that they're going to have to make.
Big time, because, Timo is wanting the big bucks. Mm-hmm. Granted, his playoff performance wasn't exactly helpful to that. That might have hurt some of his payout. So we'll see on that. Going over to the West, Vegas takes down the Oilers in 6. This one got a little nasty.
Yeah,
but
it sure did.
But apparently, good to know that you can run right, or you can skate right to an opponent, slash some guy in the wrist, and it's only one playoff game.
Yeah, I mean, playoffs are prison yard rules. I don't know why we're surprised at this point. I mean, I think that suspension should have been more. Obviously, I was surprised they gave Nurse the game for instigating, and then kind of evened it up with a like that should have been more. I think on Pietrangelo. Look, man, Vegas. I have to. I don't like giving Vegas credit, but you gotta give some credit here, man. They, obviously, they get Laurent Brossoit goes down and Aiden Hill steps in and they don't miss a beat. Which the only thing about this series that annoyed me is like some of this revisionist history on Aiden Hill suddenly. It's like, doesn't Mike Greer look dumb now? And it's like, dude, like,
no,
Aiden Hill, if you want to really break it down, is their 4th string guy. If Laurent Brossoit's ahead of him, like Robin Leonard would be the starter. Then it's Logan Thompson, who's not playing, obviously injured. Then they went with Laurent Brossoit over Aiden Hill. So, I mean, yeah, maybe Mike Greer looks dumb now, but like it's not like, Aiden Hill's the guy behind Laurent fucking Brossoit. I'm supposed to be impressed? No, I'm not impressed. I mean, look at a hell of a game for Aiden Hill. Obviously,
yeah, dude, that was a great game.
Yeah, great performance. And I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but there's been a lot of like, oh man, I knew all along this was the guy. No, you didn't. Shut the fuck up. Like there are some people. Now look there are some people who like Hockey Jerk. Hockey Jerk has the receipts. He was very much like, I don't know, man. I don't think Aiden Hill was the right guy to toss here. There are some people, but there are a lot of people that have come to this conclusion now. No, you didn't. You're a fucking liar. You're just, who's just going wherever the wind's blowing. And I'm not having it. Not fucking having it.
From the optics, I get it for us Sharks fans, how that's like, oh my God, Aiden Hill, if he wins Conn Smythe and the Vegas Golden Knights win the cup.
Yeah.
But on the Vegas side, that's a huge deal now.
Yeah.
To send a 2024 4th round pick to San Jose for a depth goaltender who was injury prone last season for the Sharks.
He was. I don't think it's fair to say he's injury prone. He had a rough season with the Sharks where he wasn't very good and he had health issues that season. I don't think he's been overly injury prone, to be completely fair. I think that was something that was kind of blown out of proportion. It was a little bit of recency bias by Sharks fans, just being like, well, he was injured with us, so obviously he's got injury issues.
Of course.
So yeah, I mean, like I get it if you're disappointed. Like obviously, but I think going by the information we had at the time, look at James Reimer had a good season. Like, and look at if your take was that we should have just gone with the two young goalies and let them fight it out because we were going to tank anyway. That's a fine take. I'm not going to argue with you on that one. The take that I'm not having is I knew all along that the third best goalie that season that we sent away was actually the best out of all three of them. Like, no, I'm not. No, you didn't. Shut the fuck up.
No, no. Jack Eichel, heck of a series, heck of a playoff so far.
Yeah, super happy for Jack Eichel because Jack Eichel gets all kinds of shit. And I'm happy that Jack Eichel's having a good playoff. As much as I don't want to see the Golden Knights succeed, I am happy for Jack Eichel. And look at, man, I mean, Jack Eichel has, not that he didn't single-handedly, obviously like people are gonna be like, oh, he single-handedly beat Connor McDavid, and so Jack Eichel actually better. No, let's not get carried away, but he's having a good playoff, and I think he deserves all the flowers at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Earlier I talked about how Toronto looks like the Sharks from the late 2000s, early 2010s, with their roster built for a cup. Seattle had the look of the 94 Sharks.
Before we get to the Seattle series, though, I have to ask you a question. No, that's okay. I have to ask you a question because I think that Racist Fan Rocks in the chat kind of reminded me about this because I did want to hit this. Would you have gone with Stuart Skinner in the game, whatever it was they got eliminated in 6?
In 6?
Yeah, I think I would have. I would have started Jack Campbell. And
I
did
too.
put it in it. I know I didn't tweet it out, but anyone who's in the Discord knows that when that game started, I'm like, oh, not Jack Campbell, not a good idea. So I'm not Monday morning quarterbacking. I was surprised they didn't go because I think like the difference between this and the series we're going to talk about next, where obviously Jake Ottinger had some really rough games, was like Stuart Skinner didn't really bounce back the same way Ottinger did. And I thought Jack Campbell came in and looked really, he looked like, I'm not a big Jack Campbell guy, but I thought he handled himself well enough coming in. And I don't know, man, with the seat, like, I just looked the way again, like, the kind of like the Devils situation, but I feel like the Devils at least tried to do some things with their goaltending, where I think Edmonton just, ride or died with Stuart Skinner. And I think that was a mistake. And it maybe, again, maybe a little bit of hindsight quarterbacking there, but I don't know. I don't know. Like Stuart Skinner just didn't look like he had it at all, that series. So I'm surprised that they ride or die with Stuart Skinner. I probably would have. I mean, what happened? You start Jack Campbell and you lose, big deal. You were losing anyway.
Again, I hate to refer to Sharks playoff history, but Kevin Constantine took a risk and started Wade Flaherty in Game 6 against Calgary.
Yeah,
found a way to win. You keep rolling with them. I mean, you pulled Skinner before.
He got pulled like what, 3 times that in that series alone. Like, it's a 6-game series. You got pulled 3 times.
I mean, what is Campbell's like? What else? What do I need to do to get a start around here?
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm totally with you on Campbell.
It sucks. Totally. I mean, like if you've the way that the Oilers have like. And it looks like Ken Holland's going to be back next year. I feel bad. That's another team I kind of feel bad for because, again, it's like you have these guys in Draisaitl and McDavid, and like you look at a lot of the some of the money decisions. Again, goaltending. There's not a lot of really good goaltenders in the league right now. I feel like there's a lot of good goaltenders, but there's not a lot of elite goaltenders right now. It feels like, and it's you need a goalie in the playoffs and. Edmonton did not get the goaltending, and and they're tied to Jack Campbell now for quite some time. Yeah, like I feel bad for Edmonton because again, I feel like you have these players that are just insane talents in McDavid and Draisaitl, and to mismanage it as badly as they had between Peter Chiarelli and Ken Holland, it's a shame. I think it's a shame. It sucks for. Yeah. I think it just sucks for hockey in general. Like, am I happy that Edmonton's out? And like, the one thing, again, I am Canadian. I do live in Canada. I live in Ontario. But the thing is for me, right? Like, there's always like this talk about, oh no, Canada, they're out, for the 30th year. Ian, how do you feel that Canada's not going to win a cup? Dude, I enter every season hoping an American team wins the cup. I'm a motherfucking Sharks fan. That's all I have to say about that.
Very true. Very true. We'll get into something a little bit later on there,
okay.
But as I was saying, so as Toronto was like the late 2000s Sharks, Seattle reminded me of the 94 run. And a hell of a run.
Yeah, except they weren't a one-line team.
No, they were a four-line team.
Because the 94 run was a one-line team.
How dare you insult Jeff Odgers like that?
I don't care. It is what it is.
But just the feel of it. I mean, your inaugural trip to the playoffs, you stunned the Stanley Cup champions and one of the odds-on favorites to win it all.
Yeah.
But to lose to Dallas in 7, I mean, a heck of a playoff journey. But
yeah,
and I know
I'm a little disappointed it ended. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, same here. It would have been fun.
I enjoy watching people freak out on Twitter. I don't really post on Twitter that much anymore, but I do enjoy watching people freak out. And I think a Vegas Seattle conference final would have definitely just filled my rage jar. But yeah, look.
Why is that? Wait. Why is that?
Oh, because could you imagine? Could you imagine the anger? I mean, I think you're already gonna see a lot of dumb stuff on Twitter because all the teams are like Sunbelt teams that are left.
Wah.
Yeah, I know. I love it though. I don't care. Okay, here's the thing. Yeah, Seattle. Hats off to Seattle. I think it was a hell of a run. I think that I think they exceeded everybody's expectations for them this year. A lot of them had a lot of people had them before the season. I think if you look at a lot of preseason predictions, I think people maybe Seattle might have something, but no one thought they had this.
Oh no!
Right? Like we all thought, yeah, they'll be them Anaheim and Anaheim, San Jose, and Seattle fighting for last place in the Pacific. Nope. That did not happen. Some really nice pickups for Seattle in the offseason. That obviously helped bolster this run. And look at this team's going to just get better. And that's the shitty thing about the Pacific Division and where the Sharks are, because there's kind of an arms race starting in the Pacific. You've got Seattle, who I think has, they've done really well in every draft they've had so far. And they've gotten some luck too, like Shane Wright falling into their laps is a pretty nice get. So I look at a team like Seattle, and you look at a team like Coachella Valley, and you see some of the guys that have performed well down there. The Cole Linds. We saw Cartier come up, who definitely tormented the Barracuda a little bit this year with Coachella. So the future's bright there, man. Edmonton they've still got McDavid and Draisaitl. As much as they can try and fuck it up, they're still going to be a team that is going to be tough to get ahead of. Vegas is Vegas. I mean, Vegas, they're going to have to continually do this cap tightrope walk they're doing, but I think they kind of showed everyone this year that their party isn't over yet. The Ducks and Kings are on their way up. Ducks are going to get Fantilli to add to what they've got brewing. The Kings are on the come up. I think the Kings, if you look at the Kings now, I think they might, was this their last happy to be there year? Or are there going to be more expectations there next year? I think that's a conversation you could have. So yeah, it's, when you're a team like the Sharks, this is not the things you want to see, because there's a lot of teams on the come up right now.
Yeah, big time. And Seattle was one of those teams that made a big gap push. Like we said, hats off to them for a great run.
Oh yeah,
but they came into the juggernaut, unfortunately, of Jake Ottinger and.
That wasn't even Jake Ottinger at his best. That's
I know that's a funny
sad
thing,
part, right? Because I think Jake Ottinger,
period.
in that elimination game, the game where he was fantastic, but. Yeah. He has kind of been a little bit all over the place these playoffs, but not but I don't but he's had been able to bounce back. He has shown bounce back, which is, I think that's what separates him from like the Stuart Skinner situation. Is Ottinger did show signs of bounce back where I don't think Skinner did. But yeah, I mean, look at this Seattle team. The Seattle team, I think they had a hell of a run. I think they should be happy. Obviously, look at you're always disappointed when your team goes out, but I think when you consider the team the season they had last year to this year, I mean it's nice being a Kraken fan right now. I'm sure. I think that they should be pretty happy with what they did. And Dallas continues to be the team that I like the most of the teams remaining. I think Jake Ottinger did give us a little bit of a scare that round, and it'll be interesting to see if that continues against Vegas. But yeah, I mean, what can't you say about Dallas at this point? I think they're a pretty well balanced team, and I think that I do think the better team won that series against Seattle.
Yeah, no, agreed. It also helps that some former Shark went off.
Yes,
in the 7 games. Holy crap! Especially game 1. I don't know his name either. I feel the incoming call from AJ happening any moment now. But I mean, that first game, that first period of game 1 of that series was just insane. And then just Joe Pavelski with the 4-goal game. Yeah. I mean, my gosh, Jumbo probably called him and said some things.
Why didn't you stroke it on the ice? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah,
I mean, it wasn't a good thing though, because I think Draisaitl had a 4-goal game too, and they both lost. Both teams lost this game. So I mean, that's what you get for doing it all yourself. You don't do it by committee, you don't win.
How dare you? Right. So, all right, let's get into the conference finals. Carolina, Florida starts on Thursday. To me, I think this can be a potential for a classic in multiple ways. Florida has the scoring, but also has that grunting style that they just can wear you down, while Carolina, kind of has been the beast of the East the most of the time. But Boston and Toronto and Tampa kind of gets in the way for them to get some love. Burnsy's had a heck of a playoff. I mean, what says you?
This is tough. I am tired of going against Carolina at this point. I think Florida's done a hell of a job here. I think that Florida should be really happy with what they've done. And I don't think, I can see a path for Florida to win this thing. But to me, Carolina they just look so good. And I've been really apprehensive to go with Carolina because I've had, they've kind of burned me. I feel like they burned me in the past, right? With just like goaltending injuries or what have you. And so far, their goaltending has stood up and has managed, right? I don't know what happened down to Toronto. I don't know if he got sick or what happened to him, but Freddie Anderson came in. He's been great too. So, I'm tired of Carolina making me look dumb, which means they're going to do it this round. I think I'm going with the Canes. I don't think this is going to be a quick series, though. I think Florida is going to give them all they can handle. I'm going to take the Canes in 6.
Yeah, I was this close to thinking about Florida in 7. It's definitely going to go 7 games. I think Carolina is going to take it in 7. Goaltending, to me, is kind of the issue for both squads if it can be consistent. I mean,
Bobrovsky's gone ice cold on it with a drop of a dime before.
Exactly.
That would definitely be a concern. Other than Jake Ottinger, who also hasn't been very good, I don't think there's a goalie left in the playoffs that I would really be comfortable ride or dying with, to be completely honest.
And like Racist Fan Rocks 4 says, Florida was a President's Trophy winning team last year.
Yeah, but I think they made some good changes in the offseason. Obviously, getting Matthew Tkachuk was a huge get for them. If Florida at this point, if you had to handicap Conn Smythe, Matt Tkachuk is probably my Conn Smythe guy if the Florida Panthers were able to continue doing what they're doing now. He's been huge for them. And I think that's an element they didn't have last year. And I think he's been really good. He'd be definitely a guy who would be on my short list for Conn Smythes if Florida does manage to make it past the Hurricanes again to the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah. So there it's Florida versus Brent Burns and former Shark Stefan Nason, has had a pretty decent playoff run this year as well after winning the Calder Cup with the Chicago Wolves the year before. And now we go to the West where it's former Sharks aplenty. It's Adin Hill for the Golden Knights versus former Golden Knights coach Peter DeBoer and Joe Pavelski. This one, to me, this one's even tougher.
This one, like, again, there's so many things that can. Vegas is such a tough team to play against. Like, I think they're a team that they can hurt you in a lot of ways. They can hurt you by just hurting you. They can hurt you on the score sheet. Yeah, this is tough, and I'm gonna go with Dallas because I have Dallas. Like I've had Dallas this whole time in my cup final. So I'm sticking with Dallas here. How many games? I think this is a long series too. I think this might be this might go the distance. And I think if it does go the distance, that favors Peter DeBoer. So Dallas. Because Peter DeBoer apparently hasn't lost a Game 7 ever as a head coach. So, look at Dallas. I like Dallas. I think that they have a pretty, like, these are two pretty well balanced teams, I think. This is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see, obviously, what happens in net for Vegas. If Laurent Brossoit is, I don't know how hurt he is, if they go back to him, if he gets healthy, or if it's Adin Hill's net until it's Jonathan Quick's net. Like I just can't ride or die with Adin Hill. I can't do it. And I look at it, and again, that's not to take away anything he's done, but like if I have to choose between Jake Ottinger and Adin Hill, I'm taking Jake Ottinger every time.
Yeah, no, I agree. Ottinger is slightly better. Well, let's be honest, he's a lot better versus Adin Hill. But you got to give stick taps to Hill to what he's done.
What he's done in the playoffs. I mean, nothing should be taken away from him. I just think that Ottinger is the more proven commodity.
Yeah. I want Dallas so bad to win this series. My heart says Dallas in 7, but my mind thinks it's going to be Vegas in 6.
Ooh. I could see it.
I could see it too because I think they're going to get away with some stuff again, and it's just going to benefit their advantage. If Marchessault does his thing, it's like, oh fuck. Does Stevenson do his thing? Fuck. Does Mark Stone do his thing? Which we can get into the circumvention of the cap over again, but I digress. Yeah. So. We'll see. I will go for Dallas in 7, but yeah, it could go either way.
Oh yeah, I'm hoping this will be a better round of hockey than we got in the second round, because I think the first round was a lot of fun. Second round didn't really get good until the end. And kind of most series, like most of these games were like they were over, and they were over early. So I'm hoping we get some better games in the third round, and it'll be nice, man. Just having no hockey the last 2 nights has been it's weird, right? I got home from work the other night, I'm like, there's no hockey. Like I don't even know what to do with myself now, because that's all I've been doing is like I come home from work, I throw on the game, make dinner, sit down, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. There's no hockey.
Yeah.
And that's and it's all gonna be over soon. So
yeah, it could be weird. I mean, you could be watching ESPN and watching a blowout baseball game while Edmonton and Vegas score 3 goals right away.
Yeah, I mean that's why I like living in Canada. That shit would never happen here.
I am very jealous. Not the least of which, it's a playoff game, guys.
I know. Yeah,
really?
It's sad.
And then ESPN, you didn't let it go to TNT because you had to show a baseball game.
Yeah, it's
Come
weird,
on.
right? Like you couldn't was it not on could you not watch it anywhere?
I think they had it on ESPN News. Chat, you could tell me if I'm wrong, but the thing is that they had it going on another channel. So if you're DVRing the thing, you're in trouble, or it's just frustrating. I mean, let's be honest. It's the basis of what Landy and I, moaned and groaned about for years ago with NBC about getting a double header off in time.
Yeah.
It's like Golf Channel,
Kevin,
really?
I like the CHL delays the playoffs so long from the end of the season to now. I think it's a different situation, right? Because those are kids, so I don't really have any issue with it. Because these are kids that are still, they've got schoolwork to do and stuff too, so they kind of have to spread that out a little bit more. Yeah, I'm fine with it, man. I'm really pumped for the Memorial. I think we're gonna have a really good Memorial Cup this year. So on a completely unrelated side note, I'm looking really forward to the Memorial Cup because I think whoever makes it through this Peterborough-London series has been pretty good. I've watched a little of that so far. I think this Memorial Cup's gonna be a really good tournament.
What are we looking at in all the series? I was watching some of the highlights when Seattle went off against Winnipeg last night.
Yeah, I can't remember. I know I think Peterborough is up on London, but I could be wrong on that.
Yeah. While you look for that, I'll say stick taps to Chloe Primerano.
Answer the question. Damn it. Okay.
Oh.
That's enough on that.
But congrats to Chloe Primerano, who plays defense in North Vancouver, BC, was picked by the Vancouver Giants, becomes the first female skater to be drafted in the WHL Bantam draft. Very cool to see happen there. I mean, you gotta love it with that. But since Ian's still looking, you ready or no? You need me to install a little bit more?
I have to go 3 different websites here.
Okay, well, we'll do that. I'll go on my AJ style rant here.
Okay.
I'm kind of sick and tired of this whole and even Chris Cuthbert said the Southeastern Conference Final. Get over it. If you guys want this game to grow, or do you just do you all just want a 10-team Canadian league with some teams in the US? It's you need to grow the game somehow. Yes, I know Arizona's frustrating to see, and I don't blame you for being upset about that. Atlanta was crappy, and I don't know why we're giving Atlanta a third chance at the NHL if that ever happens. But you look at what Dallas has done. You look at what San Jose's done. You look at what Vegas has done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot more success stories out there. Tampa. You look at this series coming up for the Panthers is going to be massive for what they are going to be doing. Yeah, I get it. And if it weren't for the Coyotes, the Leafs don't have Austin Matthews.
So the Ontario Hockey League, I think the game just ended. So I believe the Peterborough Petes are now up 3-1 on the London Knights. And then we go to the Western Hockey League. What's going on here?
Seattle, Winnipeg.
Mm-hmm.
I think Seattle is up.
Yeah, I believe so too.
And then and what is in the Quebec League? It's Halifax and
I knew this.
Why am I blanking?
I know. It's Halifax and the Ramparts, I believe.
Oh, Quebec.
Yeah,
got it. So
and I believe that series is 2-1 for the Ramparts, I believe. So yeah.
Gotcha. And hosting this year is
not the Ontario Hockey League. I think it's in Quebec this year, isn't it?
It is. No, it's in Kamloops.
Oh, it's in Kamloops. You're right. Yeah, you're right. It's in Kamloops, and then
Okay.
it comes to Ontario next year. It'll be in Saginaw. Yeah. So there you go.
So let me get this straight here. So just Kamloops just like
Kamloops
gets relaxed for 2
in.
months.
Yeah, they're in because they're the host. So they'll be in, and then so they're the one team that we know is going to be in there for sure. They will play, and then there'll be whoever wins each league.
All right.
There you go.
All right. So
I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be like a lot of really good teams are still in this, so I think it's going to be a good. I think it's going to be a good tournament. I'm really looking forward to it. It's one of the highlights of my hockey season is the Memorial Cup. It's right up there for non-NHL hockey. It's like right up there with the World Juniors as far as like things that I super must watch.
I'm certainly down for it. I've always had a keen eye for the Memorial Cup. I just wish, the championship series were shown down here in the States, but I get it that there's, conference final time in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah,
totally
it's
understandable.
I get it. I think, and to go to what you were saying, I agree. I think here's the problem, right? Is obviously these people like making money, and when Canadian teams don't do well, it's not like I think the diehards will watch the Stanley Cup final regardless of who's playing, and I think there are a lot of diehards in Canada who will probably watch it regardless. But I get it from their, like, I understand where they're coming from. Obviously, they want to do well because they want to keep working. If you're a guy who's on TSN and you namely do hockey, and the Leafs are out, and there's no, you don't need to do a Leafs show every day like that. That hurts your wallet.
Are you sure?
Well, I'm sure they'll find a way to manage, but you know what I mean? Or to a lesser extent in Edmonton or whatever, right? Like, I think if that is what your money is, if that's where your money is, like, I get it. I don't, again, like, what's the solution though, right? Like, what do they want? Do they just want the to be raked? Like, do they want it to be fixed so that Toronto just makes the Stanley Cup final every year? Like, I don't know how you fix it. Like, and you like, I guess they would probably want a luxury tax or something, but it's completely different other animal.
But let's put every team on even footing here. Yes, yeah. there are the loves like in the NFL, like the Cowboys and Niners, and for a lesser extent Patriots and Raiders, but
sure.
I think we need to get over the freaking damn arbitrary 6 for once and for all. Yes, there weren't even the 6 teams that started the league. For
they were the 6
sakes.
Teams that survived the World Wars.
Right.
Yeah, no, and I get it, right? And I think, but here's the thing, right? Like, the one thing that I always say, and I said this on our last show, it's like these teams draw numbers, and if you're in the business of wanting numbers, like teams like Boston, people watch Boston. Say what you want about Chicago, people watch the Blackhawks.
And I'll come back with, yes, they will, and of course they will now because of Connor frickin' Bedard.
Sure.
But how much of a spotlight would TNT and ESPN have to do to put Connor Bedard in Columbus?
Yeah, they'd have to deviate a little bit, obviously, but right. I think, like, again, like, I don't think like it's not like they like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, this whole thing's fixed in Chicago, blah blah blah, and I'm not going to argue with people about it, but it's like people would watch the Blackhawks regardless, like, because they generally do well on television, and that's just the reality of it. Like, they don't really need a reason to show the Blackhawks more. They're going to show the Blackhawks a bunch anyway. But I digress.
Yes. So that will pretty much do it for us at this time. Let us know what you think in the chat, or if you're watching this on the replay, what do you think? What's your cup final?
Yeah,
is it Carolina Dallas? Is it going to be torment because you're going to see a San Jose Shark legend win a Stanley Cup and it's not in Teal? Or does Florida come out of the East to shock everybody in the world and make Canada even more pissed off? Or it'll
be Vegas and everyone will be pissed off.
Or everybody will be pissed off because the hardest trophy to win in sports gets presented to a team that has, sparkly gold uniforms with sparkly gold helmets and had everything handed to them.
Oh,
I digress.
stop it.
Okay. In case you missed anything, or you want to watch this again, check us out on tealtownusa.com or your favorite podcatcher, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I'm doing this verbatim, which is weird for the first time. iHeartRadio, Spotify, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon Music. I think I got them all. Of course, you can hit that like button right now. I don't see I only see 0 likes. Wow. Okay, thanks guys.
I see 10 likes, so we're fine.
Okay, cool. And of course hit that subscribe button, because we will go live on special things. Heck, we might even do Stanley Cup After Dark. Who knows?
Ooh.
If we can have some fun growing our exposure outside the San Jose Sharks, because let's be honest, it's not like it's going to happen anytime soon. So check us out on all of our social media platforms, all on all our podcatchers, and of course, smash that subscribe button on YouTube. Ian, thank you as always. We've gone way too long.
Nah. I think we did fine, and we had to do the start of the show twice, which was always fun. And then we had to, and then we had things to talk about. And look, it's not like we're putting out like a ton of content right now. Well, that is going to change. We are going to get TTG rolling sooner than later.
Yeah.
So look out for that. But until then, if something happens Sharks related, obviously we'll be back. That's the thing that'll happen. So
yes.
If anything Sharks related happens, obviously we'll be back. I think there's still I think this is going to be one of the more boring off seasons for the San Jose Sharks, but I still think there's still some things that have to be sorted out that are going to be interesting, that I think we can definitely make content of. So that's that. But aside from that, though, man, that's it. We're gonna get the hell out of here, and that'll be it. Let's see if the outro is gonna work properly.
All right, and thanks for watching. Keep it real, keep it teal, keep it real teal. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you soon.
TM.
Ish.